very much, Randall and Diana, for performing here. Our next speaker is Dr. Jim Wilson. He's a director of a hospital in San Francisco and also one of the co-founders for Friends of Gao Zhishen. As you may see later on that on the torch, all the runners for today's torch relay, they'll be wearing a yellow ribbon, and that is to help release Gao Zhishen, who is one of the top 10 most distinguished human rights lawyers in China. However, because he defends for the rights of Falun Gong practitioners and also the other groups that are being suppressed by the Chinese government, he's now also imprisoned by the Chinese Communist regime. Now let's welcome Dr. Wilson.
Thank you very much. I'm here for Gao Zhishen and the friends of Gao Zhishen. He's a very unusual man. He's an attorney. He fought for the rights of people that were oppressed in China and did so at the risk of his own family and his own life. And last year he was distinguished by being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, along with Al Gore and others. Gao Zhishen brought to China an awareness at a level that had not been seen before in legal circles about the rule of law and the preservation of freedom and the rights of oppressed people. Unfortunately, last September, secret police came to his apartment and took him away. But prior to that, he had written an open letter to the U.S. Congress. And it was about the Olympics. And I'd like to read to you briefly from that letter. Dear friends, as a Chinese, I cherish profound love for my homeland and our suffering people. I also long to see the day when the Olympic Games are held in China. But when I remember the social environment of China and how the Olympic Games will be used here, my conscience and sense of justice make my heart ache. As you know, today in China, those who connect the Olympics with human rights are immediately hunted down by the communist regime and its gang as the enemy of the state and the destroyer of social harmony. We do not support nor pretend to support an Olympic Games that are used as a political tool, nor can we support or pretend to support an Olympic Games that has no consideration for human conscience, justice, and morality. In a world where the mainstream political forces value profit above everything else, where morality is sneered at, we tried in vain to urge the Olympic Games to perform its duties. But still, I choose to voice myself in a way that almost led to the annihilation of my whole family. I choose to present to the international community what is happening in China, things that are totally against the Olympic spirit, though at this moment people are busy congratulating themselves on what they have gained in the coming Olympics. I choose to do so despite the danger that I may bring to myself, because I consider it my obligation as a human being and as a Chinese person. What's happening in China is not an internal affair. This is the excuse that's often given to the Western media. This is an internal affair. What's happening in other places in the world is just as important as what happens here. We've seen that with apartheid in South Africa. We've seen that with what happened in Nazi Germany. We've seen it in many other places. We must turn our attention to what's happening in China. The issue of human rights, of freedom of expression, freedom of belief, are fundamental to all human beings and are not products of China. They do not belong to China. These issues are not internal affairs. We have to direct ourselves to what the Chinese government has done systematically in the oppression of many of these groups. The previous song, which was wonderfully done, points out the parallels between what happened in 1936 and what's happening now. In 1936, the Olympic Games took place in Berlin, and now we have a tale of two cities, Berlin and Beijing. And in Beijing, we have similar things happening that occurred in Berlin in 1936. We have the outlawing of religious groups. In 1936, Jews had already been stripped of their citizenship. Jehovah's Witnesses, Gypsies, and others were rounded up and placed in concentration camps. Outside the outskirts of Berlin, facilities were being constructed at the time the Olympics occurred. Outside Beijing, throughout the country of China, there are over 990 forced labor concentration camps. While people sit in the Olympic venue in Beijing, these camps house people that were put there because of their beliefs. While people are speaking about the Olympic events, factories are producing souvenirs for the Olympics. Last year, 4 factories, because they came under international scrutiny and utilized child labor in the production of Olympic souvenirs, were asked to be closed. This is the total irony of ironies. We cannot do anything but boycott these Olympics. And let's remember Gao Zhishen, the Nobel nominee for the Peace Prize last year, and his efforts. Very much like Karl von Ossietzky, who was the Nobel Peace Prize winner in 1935 in Germany. When the 36 Olympics were held in Germany, Karl von Ossietzky was in prison because he was a pacifist and he spoke up against the German government. Let's not forget these people. Let's not forget Gao Zhishen. Thank you very much.